Hi there and welcome back to The Aging Grace. Today we're talking about one of the most powerful and overlooked pillars of health, sleep. And I'm joined by one of the top voices in the industry on the subject. Now, Alanna McGinn is the founder of Goodnight Sleep Site. It is a global sleep consulting practice that has helped thousands of people, from exhausted new parents to busy professionals to adults in midlife who just want to feel like themselves again. Finally get that deep, restorative rest that they've been chasing. Now, she has been featured everywhere, including breakfast television, city TV, and she even leads a team that's changing the way people think about bedtime recovery and energy. So today we're going to be diving into why sleep becomes so much harder after 40, the myths that are keeping you stuck, and the real strategies you can start using tonight to sleep better and wake up ready to take on the day. And now just a quick note before we dive in, I am launching my brand new group fitness program in late October, early November. It's built to help you build strength, mobility, and energy that lasts. And you can grab your spot on the wait list now at BlakeyBreakthrough.com. Again, BlakeyBreakthrough.com. So stay till the end to hear a little bit more about that. So I cannot wait for this episode. So welcome, Alanna. I am so happy that you're here today. All right, well, welcome back to The Aging Grace. My name is Andrew Blakey, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every single one of us, sleep. So today, my guest is Alanna McGinn. She's a sleep expert, founder of Goodnight Sleep Site. She and her team of sleep consultants essentially help families and corporations to overcome sleep challenges and wake up on the right side of the bed each day. So she is a certified stress management coach. She's a host of the awesome podcast called The Bedtime Edit. And she's also been basically everywhere in terms of national publications such as Forbes, Maclean's, Reader's Digest, and she even appears regularly on Cityline and Breakfast TV. So welcome, Alanna.
Thanks for having me. Glad we can finally have this talk, you and I.
That's right. I feel like it's long overdue, but I'm very, very happy to be doing this today. I feel like sleep is one of those areas where, nobody needs to convince us about how important it is, but it's one of those areas that we don't actually put a lot of our focus in. So when it comes to sleep, why do you kind of think that it's one of those areas that we kind of push onto the back burner a little bit?
Well, I think it's because we all sleep. Whether we sleep enough or whether we sleep well, we all sleep. So, when you're not eating well. If we look at the other pillars of health, right? Nutrition, exercise, sleep is one of them, and connection. You know when you're not working out because you're not working out. You know when you're not eating well because you can see yourself not eating well and feel how your body feels when it's not eating well. We know how we are around other people, socializing. If we have proper connection and joy in our life, we can tell if we do or we don't. But we all do sleep. So unfortunately, I don't think sleep gets put in the same kind of value of importance in someone's overall health and wellness when they're perhaps reevaluating it all. That being said, I do feel that in the past, I would say, 5 to 7 years, sleep is now gaining the same kind of importance as working out and eating well and connection, because those pillars are very important. I kind of feel like sleep, I might be a bit biased, but I kind of feel like sleep is like the base of all the other pillars, because when we're not sleeping well, we're not eating well, our body is metabolizing food as well or digesting food as well. We're not moving our body because we have no energy to do so. We are not a pleasure to be around in terms of social connection. So it was important. And thankfully, I feel like people are putting more stock in their sleep health than perhaps they used to.
Fair. And I mean, you've done a ton of work when it comes to the sleep industry. You've worked with toddlers, you've worked with youth, work with, families, you work with, a lot of people in their midlife as well. So in your experience, and this might be a little bit of not a biased question, but an interesting question, I guess. But who do you find has the biggest struggles with sleep? Is that a fair question to ask? Or I feel like it's different challenges for everybody.
I mean, if you ask a parent who has a baby who isn't sleeping through the night or a toddler who refuses to sleep in their own bed, they will very much argue with you that, they have an easier go than perhaps a midlife individual who's struggling with sleep. On the flip side, if you ask a woman who's in the throes of menopause, how her sleep is, she is going to say not great. So it's really hard to say. Like you said, I've worked with parents of babies, parents of toddlers, parents of teens, and then adults. My kind of wheelhouse is midlife women. And the struggles are different, but they're very real for any age, really.
Right. Yeah. I feel like we're going to kind of break down some of those challenges for those different groups a little bit later on. But I find it really interesting what you do. You're a sleep coach, you're a sleep consultant, you even train other coaches how to help people with their sleep. And so I feel like, where did that journey come about? Because I mean, the little bit of a pun intended, but I feel like we don't just wake up one day thinking I'm going to be a sleep coach. So how did that kind of come about for you?
Yeah, I mean, like any new parent, my eldest is 18, just turned 18. That's crazy to say. And like any new parent, you don't recognize how much your sleep is going to get rocked when you have a baby until you bring the baby home. You hear about it. There's whispers, but you don't fully understand it until you're home with a baby. And now you are completely on their schedule. And that's what happened with my eldest. In 18 years ago, the industry of sleep training, sleep consulting was very new, wasn't really established at all. And I was very fortunate where I really became passionate about helping others help their kids sleep better and got certified and started Goodnight Sleep Site and now have since grown the business. That being said, my passion and my love comes for education. I should have been a teacher, but I'm 48. I'm not going back to school to become a teacher. I really do love coaching and educating. And sleep just became the thing that I did. I have now gone on and achieved my certification in divorce coaching to help midlife women through divorce, because sleep and divorce is very easily tied in through my own experience. So yeah, my goal is always just to be able to educate and support and guide individuals going through hard times.
Yeah, fair.
Sleep loss
fair.
is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, same thing for anybody listening right now. I mean, you can check her out on Instagram at Alanna.McGinn or on for the Goodnight Sleep Site at GN Goodnight, GN Sleep Site, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so this Goodnight Sleep Site, this is something that you started back in 2007, I believe it was, right?
Yeah.
And so what exactly is Goodnight Sleep Site?
So Goodnight Sleep Site, we are certified sleep consultants. I have consultants throughout Canada and the US. And we work with all ages, babies, toddlers, tweens and teens and adults, and support them through their sleep health journey. So whether that be for babies and toddlers, typically we take on sleep training plans, work on the plans with the families and parents, and then support them through it. And then when we move up into our tweens and teens and adults, we're obviously supporting them on bettering their overall sleep health, whether that be through one-on-one support, whether that be through self-led programs that we have. I do a lot of corporate learning as well. So I've been very fortunate to speak to a lot of amazing companies and working with them on sleep health, and whether it be like a sleep lunch and learn or wellness events that I attend that help their employees sleep better.
Right. So a lot of different things, which is awesome. And so
yeah.
I know how much work you've done in the sleep industry, and I know that we've got a lot that we're going to be getting into today to help people not just fix their sleep, but improve their sleep, figure out what's going on with it. But before we get into that, one question for you, which is, I think a lot of people, they look at their sleep, they know they're not sleeping well. And a lot of people kind of chalk it up to, well, it's just the way that it is. And so is that true? Or how much of an influence can we actually have on not just how long we sleep, but the quality of our sleep as well?
It's like any other, I always say creating a sleep plan is like creating a fitness plan or a new nutrition or meal plan. It's never too late to sleep better. I work with adults who perhaps have been struggling with sleep their entire life since they were babies or toddlers, or there's new sleep struggles based on age, medical issues, working with women going through perimenopause and menopause. You can always make changes to your sleep health like you can make changes to your other pillars, but it takes time. So, unfortunately, as you know, we can't go to the gym once and achieve the results that we want, right? You have to commit to it and make it consistent. Same with, we can't eat one healthy meal and it fixes all of our problems. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today, if, those that are listening incorporate it into their own sleep plan, it has to be with the understanding that it takes time. It's a lot of it's habit changing, right? It's changing lifestyle things that you do, and that it takes 21 days to change a habit. So it takes time to drop one habit and create new ones.
And I feel like that's one of the kind of the really beautiful things about our body is that, we are a product of the things we do, the habits that we create. But on the other side of that is, it's very much within our control to change our habits and to make those tweaks. I'm looking forward to hearing kind of what some of those tweaks are today. And so you work a lot with families, you work a lot with, same thing, toddlers and youth, as well as people going through midlife. And so is it true, or what are your thoughts on, I remember when I was even younger, I would fall asleep like that, like a light. And I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate in that I still do fall asleep very, very quick. My mom says that I'm sleeping before my head hits the pillow. But I've heard a lot of people who talk about how their sleep in their 40s and 50s is vastly different compared to when they're younger. Is that something that is a common occurrence?
Yeah, absolutely. Two things. One, if you are falling asleep the second your head hits the pillow, or it's taking you a long period of time to fall asleep, so longer than 20 minutes, that's actually a sign that you're sleep deprived. So a lot of people will kind of brag that, like I sleep the second my head hits the pillow. That's not necessarily a good thing. So a well-rested individual should on average take about 10 to 15 minutes to fall asleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something.
I'm learning something.
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. But yes, as we age, the kind of sleep that we get. So, if we look at sleep architecture, it's a 4-stage cycle. Typically, we have about 4 to 6 cycles of that sleep throughout the night. Each cycle is about 90 to 110 minutes each. So stage 1 is our lighter state of sleep. Stage 2, which is actually the stage in which we experience 50% of the sleep that we get at night, we experience in stage 2. Stage 3 is our deep sleep. This is our restorative sleep. This is where we're having a lot of cellular repair. This is the stage that we want our body to repair itself. Stage 4 is our REM sleep. So this is typically this is when you dream more. There's a lot more brain activity. We experience more REM sleep later on in the night. Whereas with stage 2 and stage 3, we experience that more earlier in the night. This is why bedtime is important, and I'm sure we'll address bedtime. As we get older, our circadian rhythms shift. So circadian rhythm being our natural body clock. It's biological markers in our body that tells our body when it's time to go to bed, to wake up, to, hungry, or our appetite, when to eat a meal, when to go to the bathroom, and what you're doing in the bathroom. All of those things. That also shifts as we get older, meaning that, we might fall asleep a little bit later. So there might be more of a sleep onset when we get into bed. It might take us a little bit longer to fall asleep. Doesn't necessarily mean we need less sleep. We need the same amount of sleep, but your circadian rhythms tend to shift a little bit. Now, let's also factor in midlife. If we're looking at women, a lot of hormonal changes, going through menopause. For both sexes, it could be increase in stress. There's a lot of midlife life transitions that you go through. That's why it's such a passion of mine to work with that age group, because it's not just, whether we're talking about men or women, it's not just menopause, but there's career changes, there's relationship changes, children are leaving the house, children are moving back in, parents are aging, all of those things factor into it.
Gotcha. How's the sleep been with you? I know you were just sharing with that your daughter just went to university or to college there. So how's your sleep being affected by this?
I mean, the first week was rough. Like I said to you, I'm not going to lie. That first week was rough. There was a lot of early morning FaceTime calls. And there's a lot of late night FaceTime calls, but things are better. She's good. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard. Again, there's so many different changes of life in that midlife space. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess when it comes to the sleep, you mentioned that, a lot of it is habit based and kind of how we're setting up our habits. And so I kind of almost answered one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which is how big of a factor is biological? So somebody's just, biology on their sleep versus the things that they're doing, before bed or throughout the day. It sounds like it's more of a habit-based thing versus biological, but how big of a role does, somebody's biology play on their sleep quality?
Yeah, I mean, it does play a role, and I don't think that should be overlooked. There are individuals who are born natural night owls, meaning they tend to go to bed later and need to sleep in a little bit more in the morning. And then there are individuals who are naturally larks, right? They tend to go to sleep earlier and wake up earlier in the morning. That being said, a lark can turn into a night owl and a night owl can turn into a lark. You can make changes to wake up earlier if that's what you want to do, to go to bed earlier if that's what you want to do, to get better restorative sleep. So a lot of it, to me, yes, biology comes into it, but to me also, there are things that you can do that can change that and can work towards better sleep for you.
Right. Gotcha. And so when it comes to people who are in midlife, women or men, what do you see are kind of some of the most common, I guess, maybe not necessarily issues, but some of the common things that might be playing a hurdle on them getting a proper sleep?
I mean, 3 things come to mind. One is definitely stress and stress management. And that's why, with my practice, it's hand in hand. Not only do I focus on sleeping better, but I also focus on stress management, because when we have elevated stress levels, when we're not managing our stress properly, it's not allowing us to sleep well. It's keeping our brains busy. It's not allowing proper melatonin release. We have increased cortisol levels going to bed at night. All of those things play a role in why it's so important to learn proper coping strategies. And, I'm not going to say eliminate stress from your life, because that's impossible to do, but there are different tools that you can use. A lot of what we do throughout the day can help, which we can talk about, to help manage your stress. Another one is, what are we absorbing in our mind throughout the day and at night before we go to bed that is keeping our brain busier than it should be, and also elevating our stress levels at the same time. We'll talk about tech, I'm sure. I am not going to give probably the response that you think. I'm not one to say remove tech completely, because I feel like tech does play a role in not only managing your stress, but also helping you sleep better. But I think boundaries need to be set on what we're allowing in, not just at bedtime, but also during the day. Another thing that factors in is alcohol consumption. That is probably one of the biggest sleep busters amongst the other two that I said, of what's keeping midlife women and men up at night. What kind of alcohol we can consume and how it affects our body changes as we get older. But also what we have to understand is, yes, it might be easier to fall asleep after a couple glasses of wine, but as that alcohol leaves your body, it's causing more fragmented sleep. So you're not getting the proper restorative sleep while you're sleeping. So this isn't me telling everybody to cut out alcohol, because I also love a glass of wine every now and then, but definitely monitor it and cut it out completely if you're really noticing an effect on your sleep overall.
Okay, awesome. Okay. And I want to dive into all three of those. But before we start kind of diving into those, so what are how do you know what kind of quality of sleep that you're getting? Is it just you wake up and, throughout the day around 2:00, I'm like, I need to get a shot of espresso in? Or is there other things that would give somebody a little bit more of a hint that, hey, you know what, the sleep isn't where it should be, or I need to make some changes?
I think listen, the best way to fully monitor your sleep is by getting a EEG done, having a proper sleep study done. That's not something that everybody can do or should do. I know there's a lot of sleep trackers and sleep monitoring devices that are out there. I have a love-hate for those devices. I do love them in the fact that it's allowing individuals to focus more on their sleep health through the stats that they're getting. But I think it's also very important to understand that the stats you're getting might not be factual and actual, right? So that's something just to keep in mind. I think just overall how you feel day to day. Listen, none of us are going to wake up in the morning. And if you do, kudos to you. But none of us wake up in the morning like Snow White singing to the birds. So I'm not going to say, if you wake up and you feel well rested, chances are you're waking up and you're still feeling a little groggy fucky. That's normal, right? But how do you feel during the day? An energy slump in the mid-afternoon isn't necessarily due to lack of sleep. It could be blood sugar. It could be anything. But if you're showing a lot of excessive daytime sleepiness, I'm talking, you cannot keep your eyes open, you're falling asleep in a meeting at red lights, that is showing me that you're not getting the right quality of sleep throughout the night. Even if you're not having perhaps excessive daytime sleepiness, but if it's a consistent feeling of waking up feeling not well rested all throughout the day, you're dragging your feet, at night you can barely keep your eyes open, that also is a sign that maybe we need to make some changes.
Right. I know that there's been even times for myself, and not super often, and maybe some people at home can relate to this, but it happens every now and again where it's not super late. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. And I find myself having to, give myself a couple slaps to wake up. So something like that around 3 or 4 p.m., that's not how it should be.
Not if it's, if it's an everyday occurrence, then yeah, likely there's some changes. I would take a look at your overall wellness throughout the day. If it's every now and then, I don't think that that's a big deal. So again, it's hard because again, with these sleep trackers too, and even with me kind of spouting all this information, I want people to value their sleep health more and make changes if they want to. But what I also don't want to happen, on top of that, what I don't want to happen is I don't want people to be hyper-focused on their sleep, because that's also not great. Just like working out, just like eating well. If we're hyper-focused on any kind of change, that's a recipe for disaster too, right?
Yeah, fair. Yeah, for sure. And I see that same thing all the time. And I hear that a lot with people with both nutrition and fitness, just like you mentioned. It can become an obsession, right?
That's
I mean, and then there kind of goes the balance too, right? Life, like anything, is all about balance. But so when it comes to these tips, we'll kind of get into kind of the nitty gritty and kind of the meaty stuff here. What are some of those changes that you would recommend? I know that you said that one of the areas is stress. How would somebody understand whether they need to be focusing more on their stress versus the other two that you mentioned, which were,
alcohol and tech.
And tech. Okay.
Yeah. So for stress, I mean, listen, like I said, I'm not going to tell you to not have stress in your life. Some stress is good, some stress is bad. A heavy workout can stress the body, but that's not necessarily bad stress, right? Presenting something at work or, learning anything new can be stressful, but that's not necessarily bad stress. We need to look at the hidden stressors in our life first and foremost. So what is that? Is that commuting to work? Is that people who you surround yourself with? Is that technology and, what you're reading and what you're consuming? Any kind of, it could be something as simple as having to make coffee in the morning. Do we need to automate that more? Like any kind of little stressors in your life. What is the number one thing? What is like top priority, your top 3 that you feel like you can make changes to? So this is where I want individuals to focus on this more throughout the day than they do at bedtime, because it's very easy for us to distract ourselves from these stressors, to push them all down during the day because we are so distracted from life. We're busy working, taking care of family, taking care of whatever, right? And then what happens is we go to bed at night and all those distractions are gone. And what pops into your head? All those stressors that perhaps are going to be keeping you up at night. So we want time throughout the day to work through those stressors, whatever that might be. So rather than me saying don't have problems and don't stress out about anything, I want you guys to give yourself time throughout the day to actually work through those stressors. You don't have to solve it in a day, but it could be something as simple as giving yourself 2 to 3 minutes a day, writing out the biggest problem that you know is going to keep you up at night. And then what are some solutions to that problem? Again, you don't have to solve it in that moment, but start taking steps towards solving that problem or lowering that stress. Put that piece of paper away. It's actually called constructive worry. We have to give I know we both talked with Gina Livy, and I always tell her, like, we have to give ourselves time to stress the fuck out throughout the day, right? But constructively, right? So that's kind of how it goes. And then when you do go to bed at night, that problem is going to pop in your head because, again, we're human. It happens. But this is where we need to kind of shift our mindset and train our brain to say, yes, this is going on in our life. Yes, we worked on it today. We will work on it again tomorrow. Now is not the time. So little things like that, but then also incorporating daily movement. This is not only is going to lower our stress, it's going to help build a stronger drive for sleep. So think of your sleep drive as a gas tank. When we wake up in the morning, our gas tank or our sleep tank is on empty. Whether you've had a good night of sleep or not, it's on empty. Our goal throughout the day is to fill that sleep tank full of gas so that when we go to bed at night, it's nice and full and we can fall asleep not only easier, but get better restorative sleep, better quality sleep. Ways to do that would be stress management, would be moving your body, would be getting up consistently in the morning. Forget bedtime. Our morning wake time is almost more important as when we go to bed, because getting that consistent wake time in the morning, immersing yourselves in that natural light, getting your body moving is a great way to fill that gas tank, right? Mm-hmm. Insert joy into your life, like especially in midlife. And I'll say, not just because I work with women, but I'll say more so on women, we have to make time for ourselves. And what brings us joy? It could be a phone call it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could be a phone call with a friend, a coffee with a friend. It could be an art class. It could be a dance class. It could be listening to your favorite music in the car and singing out loud. Like whatever is going to bring you some joy is going to reduce that stress. So focusing more on you and prioritizing you is important.
Interesting. Okay. And so you mentioned a little bit about almost taking a peek at your day and seeing what kind of stresses are in your life. And I feel like there's the stresses that are kind of random, that something happens to you that you couldn't predict, and then there's other stresses that are causing you stress every day. So would you recommend, somebody, writes down the stresses that they are seeing, as, daily, and then, like you said, pick the top 3 that's, the biggest stresses, or the ones that are like the easiest stresses to automate or to take care of? How would you approach that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would monitor it for at least 2 weeks and just kind of give yourself a daily log and just write down when you feel the most stressed out and what caused it. You can go for like kind of the low hanging fruit, the easier ones. What can I make? So for instance, if your morning routine, if you're a parent and you're listening to this and your morning routine is super stressful because you've got to get yourself out the door for work, you've got to get your kids out the door for work. And that now is, you guys are all starting your day with chaos and stress. How can we automate our morning more? What can we do at bedtime to prepare for the next day? So maybe pack lunches at bedtime, maybe automate your coffee, maybe for our little kids, pick out their outfits or pick out your own outfit before you go to bed. If commuting is hard, and I know that this is easier said than done, if that's adding a lot of stress to your life, can you perhaps work on adding some more remote hours in your day? Again, I know that's not always easy to do, depends on where you work and your company and your boss. Do you need to move your body more? Like, find the main stressors that you can kind of work on. Don't work on all of them because you're not going to be successful. Focus on the top 3, whether they're the easier ones, whether they're the bigger ones. The bigger ones are going to take longer, and then just start chipping away at them.
Yeah, love that. And so practical too. Like I feel like that really puts, again, a little pun, that really puts on paper, what it is that, a way of changing things and a way of,
right.
That first kind of pillar a little bit of the stress management side of things. And so the second one, there was the alcohol and there was the tech. Let's move on to the tech one and then we'll touch on the alcohol one after that. Okay. So what do you mean when you say tech?
So in my opinion, technology is probably the biggest sleep buster in our life and in our bedroom, right? No shock. And it's not just the blue screen. Let's touch on the blue screen.
Sure.
When we talk about our circadian rhythms, being our natural body clock, it really runs on, your circadian rhythms isn't what makes your body tired. It's what prepares your body to sleep. So if we're looking at, and the biggest factor is the external environment, the light and the dark of the day. So when our eyes sense darkness, it releases melatonin. When it senses light, it suppresses that melatonin and releases cortisol to allow our bodies to naturally wake up. So that bright screen, blue lights, white lights, green lights, it's also about the hues of the light, is kind of like, think of your brain as having that sleep switch. It turns that sleep switch off in your brain. So yes, you might fall asleep to the TV or might fall asleep after scrolling for hours, but your sleep switch is off. So you're sleeping, but you're not getting the right quality of sleep that you should be getting, right? It's like that junk sleep, like eating junk food. Yeah, you're eating, but you're eating junk food, right? But it's not just about the bright screen and the blue lights, because there are ways to mitigate that. There's, blue light blocking glasses. There's different filters and things that you can put on your phones. You can sit further away from the TV and not super close to your iPad, that type of thing. It's more about, what are we consuming before we go to bed? Are we checking work emails? Are we reading the news? I mean, the news not lately, for a while, isn't great. Right. Are we on social media and getting all amped up from posts that you see and things like that? There's been a lot of unfollows for me. Like, I am doing a huge work on, clearing out my news feed, because that's important, right? That's me setting boundaries on what I'm consuming. So I always felt really bad telling people in the evening hours, once responsibilities are done, you're done your work, kids are in bed, your chores are done, kitchen's nice and clean, don't do anything that brings you joy, right? Like, don't watch your favorite show, don't check in with a friend, like, stay away from tech, because that in itself is a coping strategy. That in itself can make you feel better if you've had a really shitty day, right? So this is me saying, if you want to watch one of your favorite shows before you go to bed, we all have, like, what's your feel-good show? Do you have like a feel-good show?
Right now, my girlfriend and I were watching a show called Departure, but we've been watching that. It's kind of like it's like an airplane show type of thing, but we enjoy watching that, in the after work and all of that, right?
Yeah. Like, if there's just a show that makes you feel good and helps you forget your day, you can watch an episode before you go to bed. Don't watch the entire season till 2:00 in the morning. Like, set limits on that. But sure, if there's a friend that you want to FaceTime with or text with because you know that they can fill your tank and make you feel better, maybe give you a different outlook on something that's going on in your life, text them. Stay away from the friends that don't make you feel great, or family that doesn't make you feel great, Stay away from the social media accounts that are just going to amplify your stress, and focus on the ones that make you feel like, watch the puppy videos, not the news videos, right? So I'm all for that.
Right. So a quick question actually going off of that. You said feel good show. This show is super stressful. Does that
What is it called?
It's called Departure. I mean, it's a good show.
Oh, I know the show you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
It's super stressful. Does that influence my sleep?
It depends on the individual. Like some people, and I'm actually one of them, can watch like the serial killer shows and it just does not affect me at all. Like it's what brings me joy, right?
Right.
That also probably says a lot, and I'm sure that needs therapy just in saying
Right. That's another.
But listen, if those shows are going to amplify your stress and you know it and you feel it, maybe that's not the show you watch before you go to bed. But if you enjoy it and it doesn't really affect you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in my defense, I mean, I say I'm watching it, but it's more of me like falling asleep on the couch and then her being like, oh, did you see that? And I go, oh, yeah, that was great. You go, what happened? I have no idea what just happened in this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good to know. So, and then when it comes to other tech, you mentioned the sleep trackers and stuff like that and kind of your thoughts on it. But what are your thoughts on like kind of on how accurate it is? It sounds like it's more of like a tool in somebody's tool belt versus something to go all in on and be checking it every single morning.
Well, and that's what I don't want people to be doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people to be hyper-focused on the stats because it could be telling you, someone who sleeps well can start wearing it and suddenly it's telling you like you barely got any deep sleep last night. And now all of a sudden you're super stressed out and hyper-focused on your sleep. And, there's no reason to be, right? Maybe you just had a bad night of sleep and that can happen. So listen, are some of the stats accurate? Possibly. I don't personally wear any of those devices. I mean, just for the reason of I don't want to have to check something every day. I think enough about my health and wellness. I don't really want to see stats, but I don't, again, they're not as accurate as if you were to actually get a sleep study done at a clinic or a lab.
I feel like they could also that's just my thought as I'm thinking about here. Like, I feel like they could also almost give you a little bit of like a placebo where it's kind of like maybe you did get a really good sleep, but you check it and it's like, oh, your sleep score is,
exactly.
64. So I feel like
exactly
that's something that could happen, you think?
Yeah. I think that eventually we will get there. I mean, let's be honest, technology is insane, but I just don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, true enough. And so when it comes to families, and I mean, I guess this isn't just families, but also, couples and all of that, anybody who's kind of seeing somebody, how does that play a role on sleep quality in terms of, say you've got one person who's a, night owl, another person who's an early bird, early bird's getting up early, night owl is getting up, later on. How does that affect, both their sleeps?
Yeah, I mean, it can. I work a lot in the shift work community, and that can really affect an individual's sleep for the partner who is, working with a typical 24-hour schedule versus the shift work partner, right? Sometimes they're going to bed as the other one's getting up and vice versa. Or, snoring is probably like the main culprit in bad sleep when you're sharing a bed with somebody. Obviously, when you have little kids coming into your bed and things like that is ruining your sleep. So, when it's about our kids, always work on your kids' sleep first, because if they're not sleeping well, you're not sleeping well. So we'll get their sleep fixed before we can work on our own. And then for couples who, need to find a happy medium with sleep, the first thing that I always say is focus on your side of the bed. Yes, of course, you share a mattress, but you don't have to use the same pillow. You don't have to use the same bedding because you probably have different sleep needs. Your partner could be a cold sleeper and you're more of a night sweater. So it wouldn't make sense to use the same blanket if that's the case, right? You could have, neck and back issues and your partner could have hip and back issues. If that's the case, it wouldn't make sense for you to use the same pillow. So really focus on what's on your side of the bed. If your partner is sleeping, sleep apnea is probably snoring. Sleep apnea is probably one of the biggest sleep disorders and often undiagnosed sleep disorders. You can tell if you are sleeping beside someone who has sleep apnea. And I say that not just as a sleep coach, but as someone who does sleep beside somebody who has sleep apnea. I mean, you can hear, it's not just a snore. You can hear them stop breathing. If it's you or the person sleeping beside you, if you're told that this is happening or you hear it happening, you're waking up exhausted. You feel like you're getting your 7 to 8 hours, but you're waking up exhausted. You're showing a lot of excessive daytime sleepiness. Like I said, falling asleep in meetings, falling asleep at red lights, waking up a lot with a dry throat and a headache. That can be a sign of sleep apnea. That's worth having a conversation with your doctor and having a sleep study done. Because once they get a CPAP machine, which is the usual treatment for sleep apnea, that's a game changer for not only their sleep, but the person sleeping beside them, their sleep, because
What about,
snoring.
what about somebody who like twitches a lot in their sleep?
Yeah, I mean, any kind of consistent sleep issue. So whether it's like restless leg is another common sleep disorder, any kind of twitching, body twitching. I mean, again, it's worth having a conversation with your doctor. When they test you, when you do have a sleep study done, they're not just testing you for obstructive breathing. They're checking, you're hooked up from literally toe to head. They're checking for everything, how your body moves while you sleep, whether you have things like restless leg, whether you have circadian rhythm disorders. They're testing you for everything.
To get one of those sleep studies done, same thing, you just go to a family physician.
You have to be referred from your family physician. That's right. And then you would either have a sleep clinic where you would sleep like at the clinic themselves. And normally they're set up as like little bedrooms, or the hospitals have sleep labs too, where you can stay. It's just an overnight test. We would do overnight.
And for people who are like interested in doing something like that, is that something that they would usually have to pay for out of pocket? Or is that something that same thing with referral, you can just get that done?
Well, in Canada, it's covered normally.
Yeah.
You're Canadian, right? This is a Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
For the most part.
Yeah. In Canada, it's typically covered if you have a referral from your doctor. In terms of the CPAP machine, some companies cover it, some don't. So there could be like charges for that. But I cannot tell you how important it is to not only be diagnosed with sleep apnea if you have it, but to use the proper treatment for it. And typically that is a CPAP machine. It's life-changing. It's better for your health. I mean, there's so many long-term health risks to people who have sleep apnea and either, never get diagnosed with it or don't use the proper treatment for it.
Right. Okay. And so for the people who are listening at home here, if you find that your partner is snoring like crazy and not breathing at night, then go to your doctor and get that checked out, right?
I say don't kick him out to the couch, kick him out to the doctor.
Yeah. You're saying the whole, go sleep somewhere else. That's not the right solution you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, though, more and more couples are sleeping in separate bedrooms because they want to sleep better. Unfortunately, it's kind of coined as like a sleep divorce, which I hate because for the most part, their marriage is fine. Their relationship is fine. It's just that, whether they're shift workers or whether one's snoring and they just want to get a better night's sleep, more and more primary bedrooms or new homes are being built with 2 primary bedrooms. People just really want to start focusing on their sleep, and that might mean sleeping in separate bedrooms. Not saying that that's the solution for everyone, but it could be for some.
Yeah, it's an option. It's an option.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair. And so that's kind of the second part, which is the technology. And so the third one that you mentioned that is kind of one of the more common things is alcohol as well. And so I'm just going to open up the floor here and kind of what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, alcohol it sounds like it's got a really, really big effect on sleep quality. And that's one of the more common ones that you see as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, this is where, everyone has their own personal sleep requirements and sleep needs. So, I'm not going to say that alcohol is going to affect every single person in the same way, just like caffeine doesn't affect every single person in the same way. Caffeine is another sleep buster, right? If you're more sensitive to certain alcohols or caffeine, it's probably a good idea to set boundaries on when you stop drinking coffee, per se, like once in the morning could be fine, or maybe like, by noon kind of stop. Or if you're more sensitive to alcohol, maybe don't have that at dinner or in the late night. Then I know people who can have a cup of coffee right after dinner and sleep fine. Like I'm so jealous of those people because I'm not that people. No, I'm not that per se. I also know as I'm older now, I can't, white wine, just if I have a glass of white wine, I know I'm going to have a shitty night of sleep. So I either suck it up and accept it or I just avoid it. Right. So it really depends on the person and just rate how you feel when you've had a beer or you've had some wine or you've had a drink. How does it make you sleep? If you're not set up for a good night of sleep, probably best to avoid it. If it's a one and, every now and then you're going out and you're having a drink, not a big deal, but just don't make it a consistent thing.
Yeah. And it sounds like with all of these different things, because all of these are amazing, it sounds like one of the big themes is it really comes down to being a little bit more proactive in noticing, not triggers isn't the right word, but noticing what is in your life that's either a stressor or drinking or technology, and being a little bit more aware on noticing what you're doing throughout the day and how it's affecting the quality of your sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, giving your day to day and your evening an audit, right? So what kind of changes can we make? And that's what I work on with my clients. We'll monitor their sleep for 2 weeks from the morning till the evening, till they go to bed, and, what went on during the day. Because again, so much of what happens in the morning and during the day is also going to affect how you sleep, if you sleep well or not throughout the night. So yeah, you have to kind of give your whole lifestyle an audit. And then you can really start tackling not only your sleep health, but your stress management as well.
Amazing. I mean, I feel like it's just like fitness. It's just like nutrition, where it's not easy. I mean, it requires making changes. You have to want to work on it. I mean, it's not something that's just going to change overnight, but it's something that if you want to make changes and you want to improve it, then you can, but you got to do something about it, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. And we're going on kind of 43 minutes here. So there's something that I recently started doing, starting with the last episode I recorded, which is rapid fire questions. And so how this works is I'm going to throw out some popular sleep claims or from online and stuff. I want you to give me your BS rating from 1 to 10. 10 meaning it's nonsense, 1 meaning that it could actually be a little credible. Okay. And you can feel free to...
So 1 is B or 10 is BS.
10 is complete BS. 1 is that's pretty legitimate. Okay. You can either give me a quick explanation or you can just give me your score. The floor is open to you. Okay. So the first one is you can catch up on a sleep deficit on weekends or another day.
I have to make sure I'm saying the right 10. So that's BS.
That's BS.
And it's easy that we think that, right? But think of your sleep debt like a bank account, a bank debt. So if you owe $9 to the bank, or if you are in debt 9 hours of sleep, if we sleep 1 extra hour on the weekend, that's like putting in $1 into your bank. You still owe $8, right? So this is where consistency in sleep routines and schedules is the best way to chip away at a sleep debt and remain well rested.
Okay, that's a great analogy too. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay. Second one is some people just naturally need less sleep. That's a tough one, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is truth to that. So I'm going to give it like a 4. Maybe, because if you're listening to this thinking I function fine on 3 to 4 hours of sleep, I'm here to tell you, or 5 hours even, that's likely not the case. But, the 7 to 8 hours that we kind of always hear, I like to, kind of broaden that time to 6 to 9, because I feel like some people can function fine on 6 hours of sleep per night, whereas some people might need 9 hours of sleep per night. So there is some truth to that.
Okay. All right, good. The third one, napping during the day ruins your nighttime sleep.
Again, a 4 or 5, because it depends on the individual. If you have chronic insomnia, if you have difficulty falling asleep at night, if you have difficulty staying asleep throughout the night, those are the individuals who you might think need the nap, but those are the individuals we want to avoid napping. Because remember, I was talking about like that sleep tank or drive for sleep. Right. That nap is like driving 10 kilometers, right? We're removing that gas that we need at bedtime. Right. But if you're someone who you're listening to us, you're like, I sleep pretty well, I want to take the occasional nap, no big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I feel like that's a good distinction as well. And you know what? You kind of already touched on this one a little bit, but it's that alcohol will ruin your sleep.
Yes. 10 or no, 1.
1. That is, there is definitely a good amount of truth to that.
Yeah.
Good. I got 2 more for you.
Yeah.
The first one is the older you get, the less sleep you need. Thoughts?
Yes. So I will say there is truth to that. I'll give that like a 3, because as we get into our senior years, we do our circadian rhythm shift to later. So we might go to bed later. We might need less sleep throughout the night, but we don't need less sleep overall in 24 hours. So this is where you might take the odd nap, right? You see the I don't say older generation, but the senior generation, napping more during the day because maybe they need that more of that daytime sleep than perhaps they do at night. So there is a shift there for sure. Okay. But if you're like 50, 30, 40, 50 listening to this, you still need your 6 to 9 hours of sleep at night.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah. Good to know. Yeah. And the last one on the BS rating, do you think it's BS or not that hitting snooze will help you get the extra quality sleep that you need?
How do I answer this? You shouldn't hit snooze. So what is that? Is that a 10 or a 1?
So that would be 10. That would be BS, that hitting the snooze button will help you.
Yes. Yeah. No.
It will not help you get extra sleep.
It does not help you get extra sleep. It actually helps you wake up feeling even more tired than when the alarm originally went off, because we're tricking our body into consistently falling back asleep, consistently getting into that cycle of sleep, right? So the best thing you can do, and listen, am I guilty of hitting the snooze? Of course I am. Like, I'm human, right? But the best thing you can do is set your alarm away from your bed. So you have to physically get out of bed to turn it off. And chances are you're not going to get back into bed.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that one. I knew I'd be thinking about doing that, and I've been avoiding it. But okay, so actually, I have one more thought on this. So, if, say, for example, somebody normally has a set bedtime, and they for some reason they're up an extra hour or two later than that, would it be better to still wake up at that same time, that same wake up time? Say it's 6 o'clock in the morning, or would it be better to I guess same thing, the snooze button is never a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you are consistently doing that, so we didn't really touch on bedtime. A lot of people will think that I'm going to tell you to go to bed earlier, but oftentimes the shift needs to be later. So if you're going to bed at 9 or 10 because you just feel like that sounds like a good bedtime, right? But it's taking you like each day, you're not falling asleep till say 11 or 12. And this isn't for those that are like getting in bed at 10 and then surfing on TikTok for 2 hours. These are people who are like actively trying to fall asleep and cannot do it. This is where that sleep log comes in handy, right? That is a signal to me that bedtime should actually be later. Like, we want to shorten that sleep onset. So we want to spend less awake time in bed and move bed. So maybe your natural bedtime is 11 o'clock. That being said, if it's one night where you're struggling to fall asleep for whatever reason, because we are human and no sleep night is perfect, and you want to sleep in a little bit in the morning, there's nothing wrong with that either. Like 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, be as consistent as you can be. 20% of the time, life happens, not a big deal.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I feel like we covered a crazy amount of stuff here today, which is amazing. I'm so glad that you were on here to talk about all this. If there was, say, a couple of takeaways that you would want somebody to take away from this conversation when it comes to improving the quality of their sleep, what would you say to those people? What would those things be?
Oh, I would say one is give your night table an audit. So what is in your bedroom that needs to be removed? Clear the clutter out. Your bedroom, we didn't really talk about sleep environment. Your sleep environment is probably the number one tool to really optimize your sleep health. So you want to walk into your bedroom and feel that instant connection with relaxation and calmness. So what can we do to audit our bedroom to get that sensation when you're walking in? Think like sleep like sanctuary type feel, right? Focus on your stress. Stress management is huge, whether that means a morning walk, whether that means practicing constructive worry, whether that means, bringing in more laughter and more connection into your life, whatever that might mean. Focus on that and give your tech an audit too. It's been really freeing doing that the past 2 weeks for myself, like unfollowing and blocking and all of that stuff. Like, I don't need to know everything.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing.
We need to see all the updates. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? Great advice. Thank you very, very much for being on here today. Again, anybody listening, you can follow Alanna at either GN Goodnight Sleep Site or at alanna.mcginn. She's amazing. Give her a follow. Check out her stuff if you've been struggling with your sleep, or even if you're not, do it anyways. So thank you, Alanna, for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Thank you, Alanna, for joining me today and sharing your wisdom. Sleep is one of those things that we all know is important, but hearing from Alanna today how deeply it connects to recovery, energy, and our overall health, for me, it was such an eye-opener. I know our listeners are walking away with strategies that they can actually put into practice tonight. Now, before we sign off again, I want to share something exciting for all of you. At the end of October, beginning of November, I'm launching my brand new group fitness program. This isn't just another 12-week quick fix. It's a program that is built to help you train smarter, get stronger, and build the kind of energy and resilience that actually lasts through every stage of life. Now, they are joint-friendly workouts, and here's what else you can expect. Live weekly workouts with me, educational sessions to cut through all the confusion, a supportive community to help keep you accountable, and clear tools to track your progress so you finally feel in control of your health again. If you've ever wanted the structure of a personal trainer, the science-backed programming, and the energy of a community behind you, then this is it. And spots are limited. The waitlist is now open at BlakeyBreakthrough.com. Again, BlakeyBreakthrough.com. So make sure you sign up so you don't miss your chance to join us when registration fully opens. Again, thank you for tuning into The Aging Grace. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend who could use a better sleep. And don't forget to subscribe so you never have to miss an episode again. I'll see you next time. Again, this was Alanna McGinn. Check her out on social media, and I can't wait for the next episode. Have a good week.